There are moments in life when heaven interrupts your routine, when God steps onto the stage of your journey and suddenly everything that was ordinary becomes sacred. People who never noticed you before start turning their heads. Enemies pause mid-sentence. The atmosphere shifts, the ground trembles, and your world comes to a complete halt. Because when God walks into your path, baby, you can't keep walking the same. Something breaks, something awakens, something ex pilatus, and everybody watching knows something divine just entered the room. When God steps into the ordinary rhythm of your life, everything you thought you knew about the world begins to shift. The mundane moments you used to overlook suddenly carry a weight, a purpose, a rhythm that wasn't there before. It's like the scent of heaven drifts into the room and you can feel something stirring, something awakening, something rising inside you that refuses to let you live at the level you were settling for. When God's presence enters your atmosphere, He does not come as a quiet visitor, a passive observer. He comes as a disruptor, a destiny stirrer, a chain breaker who refuses to let you keep walking blind to the greatness He placed within you. God has never been in the business of blending in. He arrives to transform, and every time He steps into a life, He leaves fingerprints of glory on everything He touches. The ordinary cannot coexist with the extraordinary. When the presence of the Almighty settles on your life, places that used to feel small suddenly feel too tight for who you're becoming. Rooms you used to hide and can no longer contain the weight of what God is awakening inside you. You start thinking differently, breathing differently, speaking differently. It's not that your circumstances have shifted yet. It's that your spirit has. Something divine begins to press against the limits of your yesterday, insisting that you rise to the level of your calling. God's presence exposes the truth. You were never meant to live deluded, diminished, or defeated. There was always something extraordinary written into your DNA, but His presence is what activates it. And activation never feels casual. Activation shakes things. Activation breaks patterns. Activation disrupts systems you got comfortable with, even if those systems were strangling your potential. When God walks into your path, you don't just keep walking as you were. Your steps become ordered. Your vision becomes sharpened. Your sensitivity to purpose becomes heightened. It's like God flips a switch inside you and suddenly you see the world, your life, your pain, and your possibilities through a lens that is drenched in destiny. What used to discourage you can no longer defeat you. What used to tempt you can no longer trap you. What used to intimidate you can no longer silence you. Because when the extraordinary presence of God awakens your spirit, you can no longer settle for being an average version of a divinely crafted masterpiece. That's why some relationships fall off when God steps in. That's why some doors close. That's why some habits suddenly feel uncomfortable. You're not being attacked, you're being activated. God is removing anything that cannot handle the extraordinary version of you that is emerging. People who were comfortable with your ordinary self will not always celebrate the divine disruption happening inside you. But God is not shaping you for their approval. He is preparing you for your assignment. He is tuning your spirit like an instrument, refining your character like gold, and stretching your capacity like a vessel designed to hold glory. This is what happens when the extraordinary meets the ordinary. Collision. Transformation, breakthrough. Look at Moses, just an ordinary shepherd on an ordinary day until God's presence ignited a bush that refused to burn out. Suddenly, a simple mountain turned into holy ground. The ordinary dissolved in the face of the extraordinary. Look at Mary, an ordinary young woman living an unremarkable life until the presence of God overshadowed her and activated destiny within her womb. Look at David, an ordinary shepherd boy who smelled like sheep until the presence of God poured oil over his head and awakened a king. Every person God used in Scripture experienced the same pattern. The ordinary is not erased, it is elevated. It becomes a platform for the supernatural to reveal itself. When God steps into your path, the gifts you ignored begin to stir. The dreams you buried begin to resurrect. The strength you didn't know you had begins to rise. You feel a pull towards something bigger, something deeper, something greater than anything you imagined for yourself. And you can't explain it to everyone because it isn't logic, it's presence, it isn't emotion, it's anointing, it isn't ambition, it's divine activation. God does not awaken what He does not intend to use. And when he begins stirring you, it means he is preparing you for a season where the extraordinary and you must confront the ordinary around you. But with God's presence comes a cost, the cost of comfort, the cost of complacency, the cost of staying where you've always been. God will shake what needs to be shaken to reveal what cannot be shaken. He will stir the waters so you cannot return to stagnation. He will trouble the nest so you cannot remain grounded when you were born to soar. He will disrupt your safe routines because he did not design you for survival. He designed you for significance. When God steps in, he activates the part of you that carries his breath, his purpose, his fire, and fire cannot sit quietly in a soul forever. It demands expression. And here is the miracle: once God activates the extraordinary in you, you become a carrier of his presence. You walk differently because you carry power. You speak differently because you carry revelation. You move differently because you carry purpose. Heaven becomes visible through your life, your actions, your decisions, your discernment. You are no longer an ordinary human navigating life. You are a vessel carrying divine intention into every step you take. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing, ordinary about someone who walks with the presence of God upon them. So when God steps into your path, the world may see the same person on the outside, but heaven knows that something has been awakened on the inside. Destiny has been activated. Purpose has been stirred. The extraordinary has been released. And though the world may not understand the shift, they will not be able to ignore it, because a life touched by God never walks quietly again. It walks powerfully, purposefully, boldly, radiating the extraordinary presence that transformed it. When divine alignment enters your life, it does something that human effort, ambition, and strategy could never accomplish. It creates a spotlight you didn't turn on, a platform you didn't build, and a recognition you didn't chase. Divine alignment is when God arranges your steps, your moments, your opportunities, and your encounters so precisely that even people who never cared to notice you suddenly pause and pay attention. It's not because you became louder, it's because heaven placed a glow on your life that cannot be ignored. It's not because you became more talented overnight. It's because God breathed on what you already had and magnified it in the sight of those who were meant to see it. When divine alignment comes into your journey, it is God's way of saying, now is the time for what I placed inside you to be seen. There are seasons in your life when you feel invisible, when people overlook your worth, dismiss your potential, or underestimate your calling. You can be doing everything right, showing up faithfully, working diligently, yet it feels like nobody sees you. But the truth is, God often hides you before he reveals you. He protects what is valuable. He shields what is sacred. He conceals what is growing. And when the appointed time arrives, he doesn't just reveal you. He aligns the right eyes, the right hearts, the right opportunities, and the right environment so that your unveiling happens before those who are assigned to your destiny. That's what divine alignment looks like. It is God bringing the correct pieces of your life together in a moment so perfectly orchestrated that even your enemies are forced to watch. When God aligns you, favor begins to flow in ways that defy logic. Doors that were welded shut suddenly swing wide open. People who didn't know your name begin speaking it in rooms you've never entered. Your work begins to travel ahead of you, carrying whispers of your potential to places your feet haven't stepped yet. Favor is not fair, not because it is biased, but because it is divine. It comes from a realm beyond human evaluation. When God breathes favor on your life, it overrides qualifications, bypasses limitations, and disrupts the expected order of things. Divine alignment is heaven's endorsement written across your earthly journey. Think about Joseph. His brothers rejected him, sold him, and erased him from their narrative. Yet, because God aligned his destiny, he rose from a pit to a palace. And when the time came for him to step into purpose, the very people who ignored him were forced to acknowledge him. Divine alignment will make your journey so undeniable that even those who misjudged you will have to recalibrate their perception. They won't be able to deny what God has placed on your life. Your rise won't be hidden. It will be seen. Your transformation won't be quiet. It will be witnessed. Because when God aligns your path, He makes sure the world recognizes what heaven already affirmed. Divine alignment also attracts recognition that is not rooted in ego, but in purpose. God does not elevate you for applause. He elevates you for assignment. The attention that comes with divine alignment is not meant to make you famous. It is meant to make you effective. God shines a light on you not for your or glory, but for His. He raises you up not to inflate your pride, but to amplify your influence so that you can carry out what He created you to do. Recognition in God's timing is never accidental. It is strategic. It positions you where your voice matters, where your presence shifts atmospheres, where your gift breaks chains, where your story awakens others. And divine alignment doesn't only attract the right people, it exposes the wrong ones. When God aligns you, pretenders can't stay comfortable. Those who tolerated you will start to reveal their true thoughts. People who were indifferent to you will suddenly react to the grace on your life. Not everyone can handle the glory God places on you. Some will distance themselves because they can't relate to your elevation. Others will criticize because they feel threatened by your growth. But don't be discouraged. Divine alignment is also divine separation. God aligns you with purpose and detaches you from anything that would dilute, delay, or distract your calling. There's also something incredible about the way divine alignment brings clarity. When God begins positioning things around you, confusion starts to dissolve. The questions that haunted you start to make sense. You begin to see the reason behind past pain, closed doors, delayed opportunities, and lonely seasons. Divine alignment reveals that nothing was wasted. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every detour was a setup for where God was ultimately taking you. Suddenly, you realize that the timing that once frustrated you was actually protecting you. The delays that discouraged you were developing you. The silence that confused you was preparing you. Everything becomes clear in the light of divine alignment. When God aligns your life, you become magnetic, not because of charisma, but because of calling. People sense something on you even before they understand it. They are drawn to your energy, your confidence, your clarity, your peace. You carry an atmosphere that speaks before you open your mouth. That's the power of divine alignment. It makes your life a testimony without you having to explain yourself. The alignment itself becomes evidence that God is with you. And when God is with you, even your steps carry a sound that heaven amplifies. Divine alignment also accelerates you. What took others years begins to happen for you in moments because God compresses time. When you are aligned with His timing, delayed dreams suddenly gain momentum. Dead visions come back to life. Long-standing prayers begin to manifest. You feel yourself being pulled forward by something greater than human effort. It is God's rhythm, God's flow, God's timeline guiding your destiny. When you are aligned, you are no longer striving, you are gliding. You are no longer forcing, you are flowing. You are no longer surviving, you are advancing. And what's even more powerful is that divine alignment makes you undeniable. When God aligns you, even those who doubt you will have to acknowledge what He is doing in your life. Even those who tried to block you will witness your rise. Even those who once walked ahead of you will watch God place you where you belong. Not out of competition, but out of calling. Not out of pride, but out of purpose. Because when God aligns your path, no force can misalign it. No enemy can undo it. No human can reverse it. And no circumstance can delay it. So when divine alignment enters your journey, understand this. You have stepped into a season where heaven is highlighting you, where God is positioning you, where favor is following you, where recognition is finding you. You don't need to chase validation or beg for opportunities. God's alignment is enough. It is your signal that your season has shifted, your atmosphere has changed, and the world is about to see what God has been preparing in you all along. When God steps into the journey of your life, things that once stood tall and immovable begin to tremble. The obstacles that intimidated you, the barriers that mocked you, the mountains that dared you to climb them suddenly lose their power in the presence of the Almighty. God does not walk into your path to be a spectator. He comes as a conqueror. He comes as the one who parts seas, collapses walls, breaks chains, and makes crooked places straight. When He arrives, every force that opposed you must bow. Every storm that threatened you must calm, and every delay that frustrated you must release its grip. Destiny does not just move forward, it accelerates, it speeds up, it leaps, because wherever the presence of God stands, stagnation cannot survive. There are moments in life when you feel stuck between where you are and where you want to be. You see the promise, but a giant stands in the way. You sense the calling, but fear whispers louder than faith. You have the dream, but obstacles keep blocking the path. But when God steps into that very space, the space between desire and difficulty, He shifts the entire dynamic. He does not remove the obstacle because you asked. He removes it because His presence demands it. Obstacles bow not at your strength, but at His sovereignty. Problems dissolve not because you're skilled, but because He is powerful. This shift is not human, it's divine. Look through Scripture and see the pattern. Everywhere God steps in, obstacles collapse. When Israel stood trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea, fear crippled them. The obstacle seemed final. The enemy seemed victorious. The path seemed blocked. But when God stepped into the situation, the sea moved, the wind obeyed, and the impossible opened like a door. When Joshua faced the towering walls of Jericho, the city looked impenetrable. But when God walked into the strategy, the walls didn't crack, they fell flat. When Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, the danger was real. But when God stepped in, the lions changed their nature. Obstacles bow not because they are weak, but because God is present. Your destiny cannot remain slow once God begins moving on your behalf. Destiny has a pace, a rhythm, a divine momentum. For years, things may have felt slow, delayed, or stagnant. But when God steps in, He compresses time, He speeds opportunities, He advances your steps. You begin to see movement in areas that were once frozen. You begin to experience breakthroughs in places where you once met only resistance. Destiny accelerates because God Himself becomes your forward motion. He is not just opening doors, He's pulling you through them. He's not just removing barriers, He's propelling you beyond them. Acceleration in God's presence does not always look like a sudden miracle. It often looks like divine alignment snapping into place. Conversations begin to shift, connections begin to form, ideas begin to flow, creativity wakes up, confidence rises. Suddenly you are walking in a strength that feels larger than you. That's because it is. It is the strength of the one who walks with you. When God accelerates destiny, He multiplies what you have, amplifies who you are, and magnifies what you carry. It becomes evident that you are not advancing by human effort alone. You are being carried by divine momentum. And when God accelerates you, He does not need permission. He does not need majority vote. He does not need approval. He does not need a committee. He doesn't need people to like you, support you, understand you, or applaud you. God is not dependent on human cooperation to fulfill divine purpose. When He chooses to move you forward, He bypasses the voices that doubted you and overrides the systems that tried to restrict you. His acceleration is not based on fairness. It is based on assignment. You move forward because you must. You advance because you are called. You rise because heaven has written your next chapter. Obstacles bow when God steps in, not because they suddenly become small, but because His presence reveals how small they always were in comparison to Him. Fear magnifies obstacles. Faith magnifies God. When God steps onto your path, He shifts your eyesight. You begin to see the obstacle differently, not as a roadblock, but as an opportunity for God to demonstrate His power, not as a threat, but as a stage for His glory, not as the end, but as the beginning of a testimony. Obstacles remain as long as you look at them through your strength. But when you look through God's presence, they shrink, they crumble, they bow. And destiny accelerates when God steps in, not because your circumstances changed instantly, but because your spirit did. Something wakes up inside you when God walks with you. You begin to move boldly, speak confidently, believe fiercely. The hesitation that once held you back breaks. The doubt that once silenced you dissolves. You begin to walk with divine assurance, not arrogance, but authority, not pride, but purpose. You no longer step timidly, you step intentionally. God does not accelerate your destiny by pushing you, He accelerates it by empowering you. There is also something profound about the way God accelerates destiny. He redeems time. He restores years. He gathers what was lost. He makes up for what was stolen. What should have taken you 20 years begins to unfold in 2. What you once thought was over begins to resurrect. God does not simply give you your future, He redeems your past. And that redemption creates acceleration. When God steps into your path, your struggles stop being setbacks and start becoming setups. Every failure begins to serve you. Every disappointment becomes direction. Every heartbreak becomes redefinition. God never wastes pain. He transforms it into purpose, and once purpose becomes activated, acceleration follows. You become unstoppable, not because you are strong, but because God is with you in strength. And here is the mystery. When God accelerates your destiny, the world feels the shift. People look at your life and sense that something divine is happening. They see progress that doesn't match your background. They see favor that doesn't match your credentials. They see open doors that don't match your RA Sum A. They see movement that doesn't match your resources. And they know this is God. This is divine intervention. This is supernatural acceleration. So when God steps onto your path, understand this: obstacles are required to bow. Destiny is required to accelerate. Heaven has intervened. Earth must adjust. And your life will never again move at the pace it once did. You are stepping into a season where God Himself becomes your speed, your force, your breakthrough, and your momentum. The obstacles that once seemed impossible will now serve as reminders of how powerful God is when He walks with you. And the acceleration you feel is not temporary. It is the rhythm of someone whose destiny has been touched by the hand of God. When God walks with you, your path can no longer remain what it was. It cannot stay ordinary. It cannot stay random. It cannot stay fragmented or confused. The moment His presence steps beside you, what used to be a simple pathway becomes sacred ground. The places where you once walked without clarity begin to glow with direction. The steps you used to take out of habit suddenly become intentional. God's presence transforms your journey from something you drift through into something you are destined for. You begin to realize that you were never just walking. You were being led. You were being shaped. You were being prepared for a purpose that was bigger than anything you had imagined for yourself. Before God walks with us, many of us wander. We chase possibilities. We follow feelings. We run after opportunities that were never meant for us. Our feet move, but our hearts stay restless. We may achieve things, but something inside remains incomplete. That is what life feels like without divine direction. Busy but not purposeful, moving but not progressive, active but not aligned. But the moment God steps onto your path, wandering ends and walking begins. The fog lifts. The confusion dissolves. The detours stop defining you. Suddenly your steps become ordered, your direction becomes clear, and your journey begins to carry a sense of meaning you never felt before. You no longer walk aimlessly, you walk intentionally, because the presence of God has turned your path into purpose. Purpose is not born in a place, it is born in a presence. You can live in the right city, have the right job, be surrounded by the right people, and still feel purposeless if God's presence is not walking with you. But when God walks with you, even the smallest thing becomes meaningful. Even the hardest season becomes valuable. Even the most confusing moment becomes productive. God's presence transforms your path by transforming your perspective. You begin to understand that nothing in your life is random. Every step, every struggle, every success, every setback becomes part of a divine pattern that God is weaving into the tapestry of your destiny. And when God is walking with you, you stop trying to force what is not meant for you. You stop trying to reopen doors that God closed. You stop wasting emotional energy on people who were only assigned to temporary chapters. You begin to trust that if God is leading, then every closed door is protection, every delay is development, and every disappointment is direction. Walking with God builds a confidence that does not depend on circumstances. You no longer panic when things shift, because you know the one guiding your steps never loses his way. When God walks into your path, he brings clarity with him. He shows you why certain seasons felt heavy. He reveals why certain people left. He exposes why certain opportunities didn't work out. God allows clarity to catch up to your pain, and suddenly, what once confused you becomes a revelation that strengthens you. Your path becomes illuminated by divine understanding, and things begin to make sense in ways they never did before. You stop viewing your journey as chaotic and start viewing it as intentional. You realize that God was not just walking with you, He was arranging, building, pruning, positioning, preparing. Purpose becomes unavoidable when God walks with you. You can no longer settle for less than what He created you to carry. Mediocrity becomes uncomfortable. Complacency becomes irritating. Playing small becomes painful. You feel a pull towards something greater, not because you're chasing ambition, but because purpose is awakening inside you. You become aware that your life carries meaning that is not just for you, but for others connected to you. God never gives purpose to isolate you. He gives it to elevate you so you can lift others through your journey. And the more you walk with God, the more your character begins to shift. You become less reactive, more centered, less fearful, more faithful, less uncertain, more anchored. God shapes your inner world so you can handle the outer world He is leading you into. Purpose requires maturity, and God develops that maturity as you walk with Him. He disciplines your emotions, strengthens your discernment, and deepens your wisdom. You begin to hear His voice in ways you didn't before. You begin to recognize His guidance in situations that once confused you. The path becomes not just a road you travel, but a classroom where God teaches, corrects, molds, and elevates you. Walking with God also changes the way you carry yourself. When you know God is walking beside you, you walk with a different posture. You don't shrink back. You stand strong. You don't fear the unknown. You trust the one who knows. Your steps gain authority not because of who you are, but because of who is with you. People may look at your life and wonder how you keep moving, how you keep rising, how you keep surviving storms that should have broken you. What they don't realize is that you've learned how to walk with God. You've learned to match your rhythm to His. You've learned to let His presence be your compass, your courage, your covering. When God walks with you, transformation becomes inevitable. You cannot stay the same. You cannot remain who you used to be. The closer you walk with Him, the more your mindset shifts. The more your desires change, the more your spirit strengthens. God begins removing old patterns, old wounds, old mindsets, because He refuses to let yesterday's version of you walk into tomorrow's purpose. God walks with you not just to guide your feet, but to transform your heart. And as He transforms you, He transforms everything connected to you. Your relationships become healthier. Your decisions become wiser. Your boundaries become clearer, your future becomes brighter. That is the power of God's presence. It doesn't just touch one part of your life, it touches every part. It reorganizes your priorities. It heals your broken places. It strengthens your weak places. It awakens your dormant gifts. It stirs your hidden potential. You begin to walk in a wholeness you didn't know was possible. And here's the beauty. When God walks with you, others begin to see the difference. They may not know what changed, but they can feel something in you shifting. You become calmer in storms. You become wiser in pressure. You become stronger in adversity. People sense the weight of purpose on your life. They sense the peace on your path. They sense the protection around you. They sense the presence you carry. Because when God walks into your path, He doesn't just change the journey. He changes the traveler. He turns uncertainty into direction. He turns confusion into clarity. He turns wandering into purpose. He turns survival into destiny. He turns footsteps into legacy. Your path becomes a testimony. Your journey becomes a message. Your life becomes evidence. This is what happens when God walks beside you. Your path becomes purpose, and your purpose becomes undeniable. When the glory of God rests upon your life, something remarkable happens. Your existence becomes undeniable. You may not seek attention. You may not chase validation. You may not demand recognition. But when God's presence marks you, the world cannot help but pause. There is a weight, a radiance, a spiritual authority that begins to surround you, and people sense it even before they understand it. The glory of God is not loud, yet it speaks. It is not boastful, yet it commands respect. It is not flashy, yet it outshines everything around it. When God chooses to make his presence visible in your life, he makes your life unforgettable. You become a living demonstration of his goodness, a walking testimony of his power, and a breathing example of his favor. The world pauses not because of who you are, but because of who is with you. They see strength where you should have been broken. They see peace where you should have been overwhelmed. They see light where darkness once tried to swallow you. They see progress where failure tried to hold you. They see joy that doesn't match your circumstances. They see resilience that doesn't make sense. And they begin to realize that something, or rather someone greater, is operating in your life. God's glory makes you noticeable not for your sake, but for his. He uses your journey to draw attention to his power. He uses your survival to spotlight his grace. He uses your rise to reveal his hand. God's glory is not something you earn. It is something he places. It is not something you create. It is something he bestows. You cannot manufacture it. You cannot imitate it. You cannot fake it. When the glory of God is truly on you, it cannot be hidden. It changes your environment. It changes your countenance. It changes your influence. You can walk into a room and shift the atmosphere without saying a word. You carry something that commands attention, not the attention of ego, but the attention of impact. The glory of God announces your presence before you speak and affirms your purpose before you explain it. This is why some people react differently to you without knowing why. Some are drawn to you because the glory comforts them. Others are uncomfortable around you because the glory confronts them. Some admire you because they see God's hand on your life. Others envy you because they cannot understand how you keep rising despite everything you've been through. The glory of God reveals hearts. It exposes motives. It separates those who are aligned with your destiny from those who are threatened by it. Because the glory does not just elevate you, it distinguishes you. And when God places his glory on your life, he does not do it in secret. He does it in a way that forces the world to watch, not for your fame, but for his testimony. Think of Joseph, despised by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, forgotten in prison. But when God's glory rose on him, Pharaoh himself acknowledged it. The entire nation witnessed the transformation. Joseph didn't ask for the spotlight, God gave it. Think of Moses, once a fugitive, later called to stand before Pharaoh with authority. When the glory of God rested on him, his face shined so brightly that people couldn't look directly at him. Think of David, overlooked by his own family, dismissed as insignificant, yet the glory of God marked him as king long before the throne recognized him. The glory of God has always made ordinary people undeniable, and it still does. The world pauses when the glory is on you because glory carries evidence. Evidence of protection, evidence of provision, evidence of purpose, evidence of calling, evidence of divine backing. Even people who don't believe in God will look at your life and say, there's something different about you. They may not have the language for it, but they feel it. They sense the weight of favor. They sense the reality of destiny. They sense the presence of God hovering over your steps. Glory makes you noticeable in ways explanation cannot. God's glory also brings acceleration that draws attention. People see you moving faster than your qualifications suggest. They see doors opening that your resume doesn't justify. They see opportunities unfolding that you never applied for. They see resources coming from places you never reached for, and they have to stop and acknowledge that something divine is influencing your journey. God uses the acceleration of your destiny to make his glory visible. What took others decades becomes your season. What others worked for, you're chosen for. What others fought for, you flow into. Not because you're better, but because you're marked. When God's glory covers your life, your story becomes proof. Proof that God restores, proof that God redeems, proof that God empowers, proof that God is still performing miracles through the lives of people who simply walk with him. And as God continues to elevate you, people will watch in amazement, not because you are trying to be impressive, but because God is using your life as a stage for his greatness. And here is the beauty. The world pauses not only when you rise, but also when you endure, when you withstand storms without collapsing, when you hold peace in the middle of chaos, when you remain gentle in the face of hostility, when you forgive when revenge was justified, when you love when hate would have been easier. These moments reveal the glory of God more than success ever could. The world watches how you suffer and how you stand. They watch how you fall and how you rise. They watch how you struggle yet refuse to quit. They watch how you walk through fire but don't smell like smoke. This is the evidence that God is with you. This is the proof that His glory rests on your life. And when God's glory is on you, your influence expands not because you chase platforms, but because you carry presence. You don't seek attention. Attention follows you. You don't strive for recognition. Recognition finds you. You don't beg for opportunities. Opportunities locate you. The world stops not because they want to, but because they have to. God makes your life too significant to ignore, too impactful to downplay, too radiant to dismiss. You become a living reminder that when God marks a life, nothing and no one can overshadow it. So understand this. When God's glory rests on your life, you become undeniable, not by your ambition, but by His appointment. The world pauses, watches, whispers, and wonders because they can't comprehend how someone with your background, your flaws, your scars, your past can carry so much grace, power, and purpose. But that is the mystery of glory. It lifts what should be low. It amplifies what should be hidden. It glorifies what should be forgotten. And it beautifies what should be broken. Your life becomes a billboard of God's greatness. Your journey becomes a stage for His sovereignty. Your story becomes a sermon the world cannot ignore. This is what happens when God's glory rests on you. The world stops, watches, and recognizes that something divine is unfolding before their eyes, not because of you, but because of Him. And so, my brothers and my sisters, after everything we have walked through together, after every whisper of destiny, every tremor of God's footsteps on the path of your life, I want you to leave this moment knowing one unshakable truth: you are not walking alone. Heaven has not abandoned you. Purpose has not forgotten you. And your future is not running late. God is already in motion. God is already stepping toward you. God is already aligning things behind the scenes that your eyes haven't even seen yet. When God walks into your path, it is not just a visitation. It is a transformation. Something shifts in the atmosphere. Something awakens in your spirit. Something breaks loose in your destiny. You may not feel qualified. You may not feel ready. You may not even feel worthy, but God's presence does not come because you are perfect. It comes because He has chosen you. And when God chooses you, the world cannot ignore what heaven has endorsed. Doors that refuse to open will swing wide. People who overlooked you will turn their heads. The path that felt blocked will suddenly clear. This is not the work of chance. This is the mark of divine appointment. This is what happens when God steps into your journey and announces, "I am with you." So walk out of here with your head lifted, not because life is easy, but because God is present. Walk with confidence, not because you have all the answers, but because the one who holds the answers is walking beside you. Walk with courage because the moment God steps into your path, the world has to recognize the glory resting on your life. They may not understand it. They may not applaud it. They may not agree with it, but they will not be able to deny it. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them whisper, because the more they observe, the more they will see that your strength is not your own. Your victory is not your own. Your rise is not your own. It is the hand of God guiding you, covering you, and elevating you. The world may try to figure out how you survived, how you kept going, how you climbed out of places that were designed to bury you. And you will simply smile, not because you're proud, but because you know the truth. God walked into your path and everything changed. This is your moment. This is your turning point. This is your divine interruption. So step forward with faith. Step forward with fire. Step forward with the assurance that the God who walks with you is greater than anything that stands against you. And as you walk, watch how the world stops. Watch how destiny unfolds. Watch how glory rises. Watch how your life becomes a living testimony that when God walks into your path, nothing can remain the same. Now go and walk in that power. Walk in that presence. Walk in that purpose. Your path has been touched by God, and the world is already watching. Amen.